Love is often seen as one of the most powerful forces in human existence, capable of bringing joy, fulfillment, and lifelong companionship. It has inspired poetry, music, and grand gestures throughout history. But love is also volatile, and when mixed with obsession, jealousy, and betrayal, it can spiral into something far more sinister. This is the case of Kaitlin Armstrong, a woman who allowed her emotions to consume her, leading to a chilling act of violence that shocked an entire community. When her long-term partner, Colin Strickland, moved on with someone new, Caitlin's resentment and insecurity grew into something uncontrollable. Instead of moving forward, she became fixated on his new love interest, Moriah Wilson, a talented young cyclist who had no idea the danger she was in. What happened next was as calculated as it was brutal. A love triangle turned deadly, a jealous ex-girlfriend watching from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. A rising star in the cycling world, gunned down in her friend's home, her dreams of a championship career stolen in an instant. A suspect who didn't just flee, but went to shocking lengths to avoid capture, changing her identity and even her own face. For over a month, Kaitlin Armstrong remained at large, evading capture in ways that baffled even the most experienced investigators. The story of her time on the run is almost as bizarre as the crime itself. How did she escape? How did she remain hidden? And how did it all come crashing down? Welcome back to True Crime Revealed. Today we're diving into the chilling case of Mariah Wilson, the murder that led to one of the most shocking fugitive stories in recent history. So if you enjoy true crime and unsolved mysteries, make sure to hit that subscribe button, grab yourself a coffee, and get comfortable, because this is a case you won't want to miss. To fully understand the tragedy that unfolded, we need to take a closer look at the three people at the center of this love triangle: the suspect, the love interest, and the victim. At first glance, Kaitlin Armstrong appeared to be an ambitious and driven woman. Born November 21st, 1987 in Livonia, Michigan. High school years. She was described as outgoing, but sometimes controlling. Athletic talent. A competitive athlete in volleyball, track, and basketball. Education. Attended Schoolcraft College and later Eastern Michigan University. Despite her ambition and athleticism, Caitlin's career path was not a straight one. Initially worked in finance, but later pivoted to a career in real estate. Became a licensed realtor and, in her spare time, a yoga instructor. But while her life appeared stable, those close to her saw a different side. A woman with intense emotions, particularly when it came to love and control. That became evident in 2018 when she met Colin Strickland. If you know anything about professional cycling, you've likely heard the name Colin Strickland. Born November 7, 1986, in Johnson City, Texas. Grew up on a farm where he developed a love for the outdoors and cycling. Started as an amateur cyclist, later becoming a professional gravel and mountain bike racer. Won multiple national and international races, eventually becoming sponsored by Red Bull. Highly respected in the cycling world, with thousands of fans and followers. Colin and Caitlin's shared love for cycling brought them together. Their relationship seemed strong, but as time went on, cracks began to form. They moved in together in 2021, but the relationship became strained. Their breakup in October 2021 was mutual, yet they still lived under the same roof. Both began seeing other people, but Caitlin's jealousy grew, especially when Colin met Mariah Wilson. Mariah Wilson was destined for greatness. Born May 18th, Kirby, Vermont, raised in an athletic, outdoors-loving family. Her passion for cycling started young, struggled with perfectionism, but used fuel her ambitions. Education. Graduated Dartmouth College in 2019 with engineering, but her true passion wasn't engineering. It was cycling. Left the corporate world to be professional cyclist. Quickly rose to prominence, major gravel and mountain bike races, set a women's record for 100-mile ride in Moab, Utah, moved to Austin, Texas in 2021, unaware that she was stepping into danger. As 2021 turned into 2022, the love triangle between Kaitlin Armstrong, Colin Strickland, and Mariah Wilson spiraled into something dangerous. What began as a romantic fallout quickly escalated into a toxic obsession, one that Mariah never saw coming. By October 2021, Colin and Kaitlin's relationship had reached a breaking point. They officially broke up, but continued living together. Kaitlin began dating multiple men on Bumble, but Colin still had a hold on her emotions. Colin, too, wasn't staying single, and it was his new connection with Mariah that truly enraged Kaitlin. To Colin, it was a fresh start. To Kaitlin, it was a betrayal. In October 2021, Colin and Mariah met at a local cycling event. Their connection was immediate. Both were rising stars in the cycling world. They began spending time together, and their chemistry was undeniable. But their relationship was brief. Within a couple of weeks, it had fizzled out. For Mariah, Colin was just a fling. For Kaitlin, Mariah was a threat that wouldn't go away. Although Colin and Mariah's relationship wasn't serious, Kaitlin saw it differently. She hacked into Colin's phone, discovered texts between him and Mariah, and became obsessed. She tracked Mariah's movements and found her phone number. She began harassing and threatening Mariah, sending relentless messages. Mariah was forced to block Kaitlin, but Caitlin's anger only grew stronger. She wasn't just jealous, she was furious. Although Colin and Kaitlin had rekindled their relationship, he was still secretly seeing Mariah. He changed Mariah's name in his phone to avoid suspicion. He continued to meet with Mariah in private, unaware that Kaitlin was watching. Caitlin's suspicions turned into paranoia. She knew Colin was lying to her. And on May 11th, 2022, Kaitlin decided she had enough. Just one day before the murder, Kaitlin was seen near Mariah's friend's house, where Mariah was staying. She was spotted cycling past the house multiple times, as if scouting the location. Did she already have a plan? Or was this a crime of passion, fueled by months of pent-up rage? Whatever the case, Mariah Wilson was out of time. By the time May 11th, 2022 arrived, Kaitlin Armstrong's obsession had reached its breaking point. For months, she had stalked, harassed, and plotted against Mariah Wilson, the woman she saw as the ultimate threat. And on this night, she would finally act. On May 11th, 2022, Mariah Wilson was in Austin, Texas, preparing for a major cycling race. That evening, she met with Colin Strickland, the man who unknowingly placed her in danger. 5:55 p.m., Mariah and Colin met at Deep Eddy Pool for a swim. 6:30 p.m., they had dinner at a local restaurant. 8:36 p.m., Colin dropped Mariah off at her friend's house, where she was staying. 8:37 p.m., Kaitlin Armstrong's black Jeep was captured on surveillance footage, driving past Mariah's location. Colin and Mariah had no idea they were being watched. Sometime between 8:40 p.m. and 10 p.m., Kaitlin entered Mariah's friend's home. The details remain unclear, but the evidence suggests Mariah likely opened the door willingly, unaware of the danger. A confrontation ensued, and Mariah was shot 3 times at close range. 2 bullets to the head, 1 to the chest. Forensic analysis confirmed that all 3 shots occurred while Mariah was already lying supine on the floor, suggesting overkill. This was not a struggle. This was an execution. When the shots were fired, Mariah's friend was out of the house, meaning no one heard or witnessed the attack. After killing Mariah, Kaitlin stole her bike, likely in an attempt to make the crime look like a robbery. However, the bike was later found abandoned in a bamboo thicket, just 70 feet from the home. Kaitlin left the house undetected, disappearing into the night. And when Mariah's friend returned home around 10 o'clock p.m., she found the horrific scene. Mariah Wilson, a rising star in the cycling world, was dead at 25 years old. When police arrived, they found a chilling sight. Mariah's body lay in the bathroom covered in blood. Multiple shell casings were scattered on the floor. The gun was missing, stolen by the killer. The front door was unlocked, suggesting Mariah was caught off guard. What had started as a love triangle had ended in cold-blooded murder. But Kaitlin wasn't finished yet. She had one more move to make, a move that would launch an international manhunt. As the sun rose over Austin, Texas on May 12, 2022, the city awoke to the shocking news. One of the brightest stars in professional cycling had been murdered in cold blood. Mariah Wilson's brutal execution sent shockwaves through the cycling world, leaving her family, friends, and fellow athletes in disbelief. But while the public mourned, investigators were already piecing together the crime, and all the evidence pointed in one direction, straight to Kaitlin Armstrong. Investigators quickly analyzed surveillance footage from the night of the murder, and what they found changed everything. 8:36 p.m., Colin Strickland dropped Mariah off at her friend's house. 8:37 p.m., Kaitlin Armstrong's black Jeep was captured on surveillance cameras, driving past the house. The SUV matched Kaitlin's vehicle exactly, down to the bike rack, luggage rack, and chrome detailing. Minutes later, Mariah was dead. This was no coincidence. Kaitlin hadn't just happened to be in the neighborhood. She had been following Mariah. Meanwhile, police questioned Colin Strickland, who had spent the evening with Mariah. Colin admitted to seeing Mariah that night, but insisted he had nothing to do with her death. He claimed he left Mariah's house at 8:36 p.m. and went home. But then investigators found something suspicious. At 8:43 p.m., Colin sent Kaitlin a text message. "Hey, are you out? I went to drop some flowers for Allison at her son's house up north, and then my phone died. Heading home unless you have another food suggestion." This was a lie, a fabricated excuse to cover up the fact that he had just spent the evening with Mariah. Did Colin suspect that Kaitlin was following them? Or was this just an attempt to avoid drama? Regardless, it didn't matter, because Kaitlin already knew the truth. Days later, investigators executed a search warrant at the home Kaitlin shared with Colin. And inside, they found the smoking gun, literally. A Sig Sauer 9mm handgun was discovered inside the house. Ballistic testing confirmed that the shell casings found at the crime scene were a near-perfect match to this gun. Colin admitted he had purchased the gun for Kaitlin in December 2021. The weapon that killed Moriah Wilson belonged to Kaitlin Armstrong. This was the final piece of the puzzle. Investigators had everything they needed. And on May 17, 2022, they issued a homicide warrant for Kaitlin Armstrong's arrest. But when officers arrived to take her into custody, she was gone. Shockingly, Kaitlin had already been in police custody once before. On May 12, 2022, just one day after Mariah's murder, Kaitlin was detained by police on an unrelated warrant for unpaid Botox treatments from years prior. At this point, investigators already suspected Kaitlin, but had not yet obtained a warrant for her arrest. So they questioned her about Mariah's murder. Her response? When asked if she knew Mariah, she rolled her eyes and refused to answer. When confronted with the surveillance footage of her Jeep, she claimed she didn't know anything about it. She showed no emotion, no concern, no remorse. Despite her suspicious behavior, police had no legal grounds to hold her. And then, in what would become one of the biggest mistakes in the case, Kaitlin was released due to a clerical error. Police had incorrectly listed her birth date on the warrant. By the time investigators realized their mistake, it was too late. Kaitlin Armstrong had vanished. The hunt for Kaitlin Armstrong would become one of the most intense fugitive searches in recent history. She fled the country, she changed her identity, she even altered her physical appearance. For over a month, she remained a ghost, completely off the grid, until finally the chase came to an explosive end. What started as a local homicide case quickly escalated into a full-scale international manhunt, as authorities scrambled to track down a woman who seemed to have planned her escape meticulously. How did she vanish so quickly? How did she evade capture for over a month? And how did it all finally come crashing down? By May 14, 2022, just 3 days after the murder, Kaitlin was already making her move. She cut off all contact with friends and family. She sold her black Jeep Grand Cherokee for $12,000, far below market value. She withdrew large sums of cash from her accounts. She deactivated all her social media profiles. Police later discovered that on May 14, Kaitlin had boarded a flight from Austin to New York City. From there, she vanished completely. For days, investigators had no idea where she had gone. Then, they got their first break. On May 18, 2022, a new lead emerged. Kaitlin had used someone else's passport to leave the country. But not just any passport, her sister's. Using her sister's identification, Kaitlin boarded a United Airlines flight from Newark Liberty International Airport. Her destination? San Jose, Costa Rica. No one at airport security flagged the fake identity, allowing Kaitlin to slip away unnoticed. For weeks, the U.S. had no idea where she was. Kaitlin Armstrong had successfully fled the country, but she wasn't done hiding yet. After arriving in Costa Rica, Kaitlin traveled to a small beach town called Santa Teresa, a remote surf paradise, far from major cities. Here, she completely reinvented herself. She changed her name to Ari. She cut and dyed her hair to avoid recognition. She underwent plastic surgery, spending $6,000 on a nose job to alter her appearance. She worked at a local hostel, teaching yoga classes to make money. She socialized with locals and tourists, blending into the laid-back surf culture. For over a month, no one suspected a thing. Kaitlin lived a new life, far from the chaos she had left behind. She was just another traveler, until the walls started closing in. While Kaitlin was living in paradise, U.S. Marshals were working behind the scenes to track her down. And then, they got the breakthrough they needed. Investigators analyzed her passport usage, discovering she had boarded a flight using her sister's identity. They pinpointed her arrival in Costa Rica, then began tracking financial transactions in the region. A tip from a local suggested that an American woman in Santa Teresa resembled a fugitive in the news. Costa Rican authorities worked with U.S. Marshals to confirm her identity. With new intelligence in hand, police prepared to move in. On June 29, 2022, after 43 days on the run, Kaitlin Armstrong's carefree life in Costa Rica came to a crashing halt. 3 Costa Rican police officers approached her outside the hostel where she was working. They asked for identification. Kaitlin lied, claiming she had no ID on her. But when officers searched her room, they found her real passport, hidden in a safe. Her cover was blown. Kaitlin Armstrong was arrested on an immigration violation and detained. After weeks of hiding in plain sight, her time as a fugitive was over. She was extradited back to the United States, where she now faces a murder charge, one that carries a possible life sentence. After 43 days on the run, plastic surgery to alter her appearance, and an international manhunt that ended in her arrest, Kaitlin Armstrong was finally back in U.S. custody. But the question remained, would she face the consequences of her crime? Or would her defense team manage to create doubt, turning this open and shut case into a battle for justice? The trial of Kaitlin Armstrong was about to begin. After her extradition to Austin, Texas, Kaitlin Armstrong was formally charged with first-degree murder in the killing of Mariah Wilson. She was denied bail, with the judge setting a $3.5 million bond, one of the highest ever seen for a domestic homicide case. The prosecution's case was airtight. They had surveillance footage of Kaitlin's Jeep near Mariah's home just before the murder, ballistics tests confirming that Kaitlin's Sig Sauer handgun was the murder weapon, forensic evidence showing that Mariah had been shot execution-style, suggesting a planned attack, not a crime of passion. Witness testimony from Colin Strickland and Mariah's close friends, confirming that Kaitlin had a history of stalking, harassing, and threatening Mariah. Her 43-day escape attempt, which prosecutors argued was a clear admission of guilt. The case seemed ironclad, but Kaitlin wasn't giving up without a fight. Despite the overwhelming evidence, Kaitlin's defense team fought back aggressively. Their argument? Kaitlin fled out of fear, not guilt, claiming she was terrified of Colin Strickland's manipulation. They alleged that police violated her rights, citing improper interrogation tactics before her escape. They challenged the ballistics testing, arguing that the shell casings found at the crime scene didn't 100% match her firearm. They accused investigators of bias, stating that officers had already decided Kaitlin was guilty before the investigation even began. Her lawyers even filed a motion to exclude key evidence, including her arrest warrants, the surveillance footage of her Jeep, the ballistics reports linking her gun to the crime. But the judge denied every single request. The evidence would stand. Kaitlin was headed for trial. After weeks of testimony, forensic analysis, and witness statements, the jury reached its decision. The courtroom fell silent as a judge read the verdict. Guilty of first-degree murder. Kaitlin Armstrong showed no emotion as the words were spoken. She had tried to escape justice, but in the end, the truth caught up to her. She was sentenced to 90 years in prison, a verdict that brought relief to Mariah Wilson's grieving family and friends. But for them, no sentence could bring back the young woman whose life was stolen too soon. The case of Kaitlin Armstrong and Mariah Wilson is a story that shocked the world, not just because of the brutal murder itself, but because of the obsession, deception, and extreme lengths to which the killer went to avoid justice. It was a case that exposed the dark side of love, the dangers of unchecked jealousy, and the destructive consequences of obsession. Now that the dust has settled, what can we learn from this tragic case? Kaitlin Armstrong's downfall wasn't just about a failed relationship, it was about control. She couldn't handle rejection. She couldn't stand the idea of Colin moving on. She saw Mariah Wilson not as an innocent woman, but as an obstacle to be eliminated. In her mind, the only way to regain control was through violence. Her story is a chilling reminder of what can happen when jealousy turns into fixation, and fixation turns into something lethal. Mariah Wilson was a rising star in the cycling world, driven, talented, and kind. She had no feud with Kaitlin, no desire to cause harm, yet she was caught in a love triangle she didn't even realize was dangerous. Her murder is a reminder that sometimes we don't see danger until it's too late. Her family, friends, and the cycling community continue to honor her memory, ensuring that her legacy is about her achievements and spirit, not the crime that took her away. What makes this case so fascinating isn't just the crime, it's what Kaitlin did afterward. She orchestrated an escape worthy of a Hollywood thriller. She stole her sister's passport, fled the country, and changed her identity. She even altered her own face with plastic surgery. And for a while it worked, but no one outruns justice forever. Her capture in Costa Rica and eventual conviction proved that no matter how far you run, the truth will always catch up. Now serving a 90-year sentence, Kaitlin Armstrong will likely never walk free again. But one question remains. Will she ever admit to what she did? Or will she continue to claim innocence, refusing to acknowledge the pain she caused? So far, she has shown no remorse, but perhaps one day she will be forced to face the reality of her actions. The case of Kaitlin Armstrong and Mariah Wilson is one that leaves us with many emotions: shock, anger, and deep sadness for a life stolen too soon. But now we turn the question over to you. Do you believe Kaitlin Armstrong planned this murder long in advance, or was it a crime of passion? Do you think Colin Strickland shares any responsibility for how things escalated? What are your thoughts on Kaitlin's escape? Could she have evaded capture even longer? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop your comments below. And if you enjoy true crime cases like this, make sure to like this video to support the channel. Subscribe for more deep dives into shocking crimes. Turn on notifications so you never miss an update, because some mysteries deserve to be told, and some cases must never be forgotten. Thank you for watching True Crime Revealed. Until next time, stay safe.